That's what I remember first. Not her smile, not her voice, just that split second she broke eye contact like she'd already decided something about me and didn't want me to see it. It was late afternoon, the cafe nearly empty, sunlight sliding down the glass like warm honey. She sat across from me at the small corner table, the one with the crooked leg that rocked when you leaned too hard. Her hand rested near her cup, nails short, fingers relaxed. Everything about her seemed calm, but there was a quiet pulse under it, something you only noticed if you're watching too long. And I was watching too long. She was in her mid-40s, maybe older, though I didn't care enough to count the years between us. She carried herself like someone who'd lived enough life to stop performing for it. There was a faint streak of gray near her temple, which she never tried to hide. It suited her, the honesty of it. We'd met 2 weeks before when she started coming in on Thursdays. Always alone. Always with a book she rarely turned the pages of. I worked part-time there, behind the counter, pretending to clean the espresso machine whenever she came in. She'd ask for a cappuccino, light foam. She said it softly, like the words weren't meant for anyone else to hear. That day, though, she asked if she could sit by the window. I told her the table was free. She smiled, that kind of smile that almost apologizes for existing, and said, "You always say that like you saved it for me." I didn't know what to say, so I laughed under my breath. Maybe I did. Her eyes lifted, holding mine for just a beat too long. Then she looked away. That's when it started, the small crack in ordinary time. Later, when I brought her the cup, our fingers brushed. Barely. But I felt it all the way to my chest, a shock like static caught under skin. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. She just said, "Thank you." But her voice came out lower, quieter, like she'd just remembered something that hurt. The air between us thickened. Not heavy, just real. The sound of the street outside faded. Even the clock above the counter seemed to hesitate. I wanted to say something, anything, but words felt clumsy, unnecessary. So I asked, "Do you come here to read? Or to be seen reading?" She smiled, slow, deliberate, and said, "Some people hide behind books. Others hide inside them. I haven't decided which one I am yet." Her hand stayed close to mine, only inches apart on the wooden table. I could feel the heat radiating from her skin. The scent of her perfume, faint jasmine, something deeper beneath it, made it hard to think. I didn't want to break the moment, but something about the way she sat, so composed, so unreachable, made me afraid to move closer. Still, I wanted to. God, I wanted to. Then came the sound, the sharp creak of the front door opening. A burst of cold air swept in. She turned her head, quick and alert, as if caught doing something she shouldn't. Her shoulders tensed. I looked at her, searching for an explanation. She just whispered, "You should go." The door shut behind us with a dull thud, and for a heartbeat, no one breathed. I stood there, halfway between the counter and her table, unsure if I'd imagined the whole thing. The glance, the touch, the quiet electricity. But then she looked up at me again, not smiling this time, and said softly, "Next Thursday." Same time. It rained that Thursday. The kind of rain that doesn't fall so much as hang in the air, soft, persistent, like it's thinking about stopping, but never does. She was already there when I arrived, seated by the window again. The book was open this time, though her eyes weren't moving across the page. A small paper napkin sat beneath her cup, soaked at the corner. She didn't look up until I said her name, her first name. Clara. Her lips parted, but she didn't smile. "You remembered." I shrugged. "You never told me not to." Her laugh was short, quiet. "I suppose I didn't." The space between us felt different now, heavier or maybe more fragile. She looked tired, though not in the way people look after a bad night's sleep. It was deeper, the kind of tired that comes from holding too much inside. She noticed me watching. "You shouldn't stare," she said softly. "Then stop looking back," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes dropped to her cup, a faint smile curving there. "You're too young to talk like that. I'm old enough to mean it." That made her exhale through her nose, something between amusement and disbelief. "You don't even know what you're asking for. Then tell me." She didn't. She never did. Later, when I brought her another cappuccino without her asking, she hesitated before taking it. Her hand brushed mine again, Not accidental this time. It lingered a second too long. Her skin was warm, pulse steady, but I could feel the tension underneath. I used to come here with someone, she said suddenly, eyes still on our joined hands. He liked the sound of the rain on the windows. I didn't. It made me feel small. Her voice cracked slightly on that last word. She pulled her hand back, almost sharply, and looked out the window. Where is he now? I asked quietly. Gone, she said, then after a pause, 2 years now. I didn't know whether she meant he'd left or died. I didn't ask. The weight in her tone made both possibilities feel true. I wanted to reach for her hand again, to steady it, to let her know she wasn't invisible. But something about her stillness stopped me. She carried her sadness like jewelry, visible, deliberate, and not meant to be touched. You should be out with people your age, she said after a long silence. Not wasting your time in here with me. I smiled faintly. Maybe I like wasting time. Her breath caught, a sound I almost didn't hear, and when she looked back at me, her eyes were bright, wet at the corners. You have no idea what you're doing, she whispered. Maybe not, I said, leaning just slightly closer, but I think you do. For a second, she didn't move. Then her hand found my sleeve, barely holding it. Her fingers pressed into the fabric like she was memorizing it, then released. Neither of us spoke after that. The rain thickened, tapping harder against the window, and under that sound, between our uneven breaths, the silence said everything we weren't brave enough to. The cafe felt smaller that day. Too many people, too much noise. Every voice and sound pressed close, yet all I could hear was the scrape of her spoon against porcelain. Clara sat at her usual table, sleeves rolled up, a thin gold bracelet catching the light each time she lifted her cup. She wasn't wearing lipstick today. Somehow, that made her seem even more human, less untouchable. I leaned across to refill the sugar jar, pretending not to notice the way her eyes followed me. You're early, I said. You're late, she replied, and the faintest smile tugged at her lips. I wanted to ask what that meant, whether she'd been waiting, but before I could, my coworker Jess breezed in from the back, cheeks flushed from the rain. Hey, could you take table 2? She called. They've been asking for her. She stopped mid-sentence, eyes flicking from me to Clara. Oh, hi, Jess said politely. Clara nodded back, but her body went still, posture straight, eyes neutral. The warmth between us folded away in an instant. Jess frowned, like she'd walked into the wrong scene. You two know each other? I answered too fast. She's a regular. Right. Jess smiled uncertainly and disappeared into the kitchen. Clara's fingers tightened around her cup. You should be more careful, she murmured. I didn't do anything. You don't have to. Her voice was quiet, but her meaning wasn't. When the shift ended, the storm outside had turned brutal. Wind against glass, thunder shaking the window frames. I found her still there, tracing the rim of her empty cup with a finger. You'll get drenched, I said. I was waiting for it to ease up. I grabbed a towel from behind the counter and offered it to her. Our hands brushed again. That same electric friction, but this time she didn't move away. Her eyes lifted, close enough that I could see the faint line under her left eye, the tiny scar I'd never noticed before. Why do you look at me like that? She asked, barely above the hum of the storm. Like what? Like you're trying to remember me before I'm gone. I swallowed hard. Maybe I am. Her breath caught. The space between us shrank until it barely existed. Her perfume mixing with the damp air, her shoulder almost touching mine. Every heartbeat felt too loud, too revealing. You don't know what this would cost, she whispered. Then tell me. She didn't. She just looked at me, lips parted, eyes soft and searching. And for a moment, she leaned in, just enough that I could feel her breath graze my cheek, warm and trembling. Then, a phone buzzed sharply on the table. She flinched. The sound broke the air like glass. Her hand shot out to silence it, but not before I saw the name flashing on the screen. Michael. She turned away, voice steady but brittle. I should go. Clara. She stood, gathering her coat. Not tonight. But before she left, she paused. One hand on the door, rain pooling at her feet. Without looking back, she said, Don't wait for me. And still, when the door closed behind her, I did. She didn't come in the next Thursday, or the one after. By the third week, I'd stopped pretending not to look for her. Every time the bell over the door rang, my pulse jumped. Every time it wasn't her, I told myself it didn't matter. But it did. When she finally appeared again, she wasn't in her usual quiet grace. Her coat was damp, hair loose, strands clinging to her face. She looked like someone who'd been running from something, or toward it. I froze mid-step, towel in hand. Clara. Her eyes found mine, raw and tired. We need to stop this. The words hit before I could process them. Stop what? This, she said, gesturing vaguely, at the air between us, at everything we'd never named. Before it turns into something it shouldn't. I took a breath, trying to sound calm. It already did. Her jaw tightened. You think this is easy for me? You think I don't? She stopped herself, eyes flicking to the floor. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her cup. It wasn't the act of someone strong or certain. It was someone afraid of how much she'd already lost control. I stepped closer quietly. Then say it. She shook her head, whispering, You don't know what you're asking. Then teach me. Her shoulders rose with a shaky inhale. When she looked up, her eyes glistened in the cafe's dim light. The space between us disappeared slowly, like gravity had made up its mind. I reached out, hesitating before brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. My fingers barely touched her skin, but the moment felt seismic. She closed her eyes just once, as if steadying herself. Then she whispered, You're too young to understand what happens next. Try me. Her lips parted, her breath shallow. I could feel the warmth of it against my throat. My hand moved without thinking to her shoulder, tracing the curve of her arm, stopping at her wrist. She didn't pull away. Clara, don't. The word came out almost like a plea. I waited, my heartbeat loud enough to drown out the low hum of the espresso machine. She opened her eyes then, and for the first time, there was no distance, no restraint. Just truth, raw and exposed. You made me remember what it feels like, she said quietly. And I can't afford that. I wanted to ask what she meant, but I already knew. Her hand lifted, slow, uncertain, and touched my chest, right over my heart. Her fingers pressed just hard enough to make me forget where I was. The rain started again outside, hard against the windows. For a breathless second, we leaned in, her face inches from mine, the scent of rain and coffee and something warmer between us. Her eyes flicked down to my lips. And then, the door opened. The cold air rushed in. Someone's voice called her name. She froze, her hand still on my chest. Neither of us turned toward the door. But we both knew nothing could go back to how it was before. The voice that called her name belonged to a man. Tall, mid-40s, rain dripping from his coat, confusion in his eyes. I didn't need an introduction to know who he was. Clara, he said again, softer now. Her hand slipped from my chest. I felt the absence like a bruise forming. Michael, she breathed, turning toward him. Her tone tried for calm, but broke on his name. He looked between us, taking in the distance, or lack of it. I've been calling you, he said. You changed your number? She blinked fast, trying to rebuild her composure. It wasn't working. I've been busy. He looked at me then. Not hostile. Not yet. Just curious in the worst way. Is this your student? Something in me flinched. Clara's silence lasted a beat too long. No, I said finally, too sharply. I just work here. Michael nodded once, as if that explained everything. Right. Well, you left your keys. He set them on the table, a simple silver ring of keys, the metal clinking louder than it should have. When he left, the cafe seemed to deflate. Air gone, sound gone, everything shrinking inward. I turned back to her. You didn't tell me you were married, she finished. Then, after a pause that felt like a verdict, separated. Not divorced. Her hands were shaking now. She clasped them together in her lap, trying to still them. We've been apart almost a year. I didn't think it mattered anymore. It does, I said quietly. To me, it does. She looked up then, eyes wide, raw. You think I planned this? You think I wanted to feel? She stopped, catching the words before they escaped. Feel what? Her silence was answer enough. We stood there in the echo of it, neither sitting, neither leaving. The space between us hummed again, only now it was charged with something darker. I moved first, stepping closer until the edge of the table pressed into my thigh. You could have told me. I didn't know you that. No, I said, but you wanted to. Her breath hitched. I could see it. The fight in her, the guilt battling with something that still reached for me despite itself. You don't understand, she whispered. Then help me. She shook her head, eyes wet but unfallen. You make me forget who I am. That's the problem. My throat tightened. Maybe forgetting isn't always bad. For a second, she almost smiled, a small, broken curve that said she hated how much she agreed. Then she brushed past me, close enough that her shoulder grazed mine. I could feel the tremor running through her as she whispered, "Don't follow me." I didn't, not right away. But when she reached the door, her hand lingered on the frame, a pause too deliberate to be goodbye. And then, without turning around, she said, "If you come tomorrow, I'll tell you everything." The door closed behind her, and for the first time, I realized what she hadn't said, whether she wanted me to come or was warning me not to. I went the next day. The rain had stopped, but the sky still carried that bruised gray light that feels like an afterthought. The cafe was closed early, chairs stacked, lights dim. Through the window, I saw her sitting alone at the table by the window, the same one where everything started. She didn't look up when I entered. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said, voice quiet, almost resigned. "I wasn't sure either," I replied. She gestured to the seat across from her. "Then sit. Let's stop pretending we don't know where this is going." He sat. The silence between us was thick enough to feel heavy, breathing, alive. She looked older tonight, not in years, but in truth, the kind of honesty that strips all the polish away. Her hair was pulled back loosely, her eyes bare, tired. Still beautiful, but no longer hiding it. "I told him," she said, "Michael, that it's over. Completely this time." I didn't know whether to feel relief or guilt. "Did you tell him about me?" She hesitated. "No, I told him about myself. About the woman I've been pretending to be." Her fingers were laced tightly together on the table, knuckles pale. I wanted to reach out, to ease them apart. Instead, I asked, "And who are you now?" Her eyes lifted to mine. "Someone who should know better." I leaned forward slightly. "Then why am I here?" "Because knowing better doesn't stop you from wanting." Her voice trembled on that last word. The sound of it, low, unguarded, did something to me. I reached out, this time not hesitating, and covered her hand with mine. She didn't pull away. The warmth between our palms spread, slow, deliberate like recognition. She exhaled, her shoulders dropping as if she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "I thought I could control this," she whispered. "But every time I saw you, it felt like what?" She searched for the word, then gave up. Her fingers turned to mine, now holding me instead. Like something I wasn't supposed to find again. I stood without meaning to, drawn closer until she had to tilt her head back to look at me. The table was still between us, but it no longer felt like a boundary, just an excuse. Her hand reached up, resting against my chest again, the way it had before. My heartbeat stumbled beneath her touch. "This is wrong," she said. "I know." Her eyes flicked to my lips. "Then why does it feel so right?" "Because we stopped lying." A breath, a pause, a heartbeat that stretched too long. She rose slowly from her chair, the air between us pulsing with everything unsaid. For a second, we just stood there, close enough to feel each other's warmth, too afraid to bridge the inch that remained. Then she whispered, "Don't make this choice for me." I met her eyes. "Then make it." She hesitated, one breath, one heartbeat, and stepped forward, closing that inch. Her forehead rested lightly against mine, her voice barely a whisper. "This," she said, "is what I choose." And in that still, trembling moment, no more pretending, no more restraint, I finally understood it was never about the years between us. It was about the distance we'd both been too afraid to cross until now. The cafe opened late the next morning. The rain had finally cleared, leaving the air soft and clean, the streets shining like they'd been rinsed of everything heavy. She was there again, not waiting this time, just being. Her coat draped over the chair, a half-finished cup beside her. She looked up when I walked in, and for the first time in weeks, there was no hesitation in her eyes. "Hi," I said. "E." It wasn't dramatic. No music, no racing hearts. Just two people who'd already lived through the storm and somehow found each other still, standing on the other side. I slid into the seat across from her. She smiled faintly, almost shy now. "You didn't have to come back." "I know," I said. "That's why I did." She laughed, soft, genuine, and looked down at her hands. No ring this time. I noticed, but didn't say anything. Some things didn't need words anymore. For a while, we just sat there, letting the quiet fill in the gaps that used to ache. The light outside turned golden, stretching long across the floor. "I thought a lot about what you said," she murmured after a while. "About not lying anymore." I leaned forward, elbows on the table, and her eyes met mine, calm and certain. "I don't want to hide from my life or you anymore. I'm tired of pretending that something that feels this alive has to be wrong." The words landed deep, not loud, not desperate, just honest. I reached across the table, slow, giving her time to pull back if she wanted. She didn't. Her hand met mine halfway. Our fingers intertwined, the movement unhurried, as if we were both memorizing it. She exhaled through a small smile. "You're still too young, you know." I grinned. "Maybe, but I'll catch up." Her thumb traced the back of my hand absently. "I think you already have." There was no need for more. The room around us faded. The faint hum of the refrigerator, the low chatter from outside, all of it blurred into a single, still moment. When she finally stood, I did too. She stepped closer, close enough for the scent of her perfume, jasmine and rain, to find me again. Her hand reached up, resting lightly against my cheek. For a second, she just looked at me, the kind of look that says, "I see you, and I'm scared, and I'm here all at once." Then she leaned in and pressed her forehead to mine. A breath, a pause, a whisper. "Let's stop waiting for someday." The world outside the glass felt far away. People walking, cars passing, time moving on. But inside, it was quiet, still warm. Her fingers slipped down to mine again, holding on, not tightly but sure. No promises, no declarations. Just presence. Just us. And for the first time, that was enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?